Rochelle?
Here.
Councilor Mason?
Here.
Councilor Lunt?
Here.
First item.
There are no public hearings at this time. We'll move to audience participation. Those in the audience who wish to address the council may come forward.
Faye Brown from Lisbon Falls. I'm just here to address the problem. When I came into town from the bus trip this week, there was a big sign up in the gazebo park, and I've given you a copy of an ordinance and also the definition of advertising. There seemed to be some problem with thinking because it wasn't for profit that this would be okay to put the sign there. I certainly have no axe to grind with Lisbon Junior Athletic League, having been one of the founding members of run softball for I don't know how many years. But I think we shouldn't set any kind of precedent of breaking our own ordinance and allowing these signs to go in. The garden looked beautiful. It's blossoming right now. Unfortunately, this sign was up during the prom pictures. Took it down later that night when the LJAL thing was over. I just rolled it up and I called the lady Monday and told her. Look. Plastic sign. There was a very hard-fought ordinance when we established the gardens. Most of the opposition was about the no smoking, but everybody agreed. I've talked with the churches. I've talked with anyone who was seeking to use those spots, and we've all come to good agreements that they've found other places to put it, because understandably, if one puts a sign in, everybody will want to. So I'm just asking that this, please, would not happen again, that we would continue to honor the ordinance that was voted on by the citizens for the reason that we don't want to have these signs. And certainly there are, across the street is where they've generally been putting this, right at the entrance to the school, on the right-hand side when they were having the fun day. That's where those signs were going. And it's very readable over there too. So I did speak to the people from LJAL. I don't know who's in charge. I spoke to the woman who called me, ironically, to ask me to throw out a ball because of being one of the founders of LJAL. So that's all. I just wanted to bring this up and to clear up any misunderstanding that even though it's a non-profit, advertising is any kind of sign. So I didn't know if we could be more particular. I looked it up in 6 different dictionaries. The one you have a copy of there is the one that's in our library. So if that's helpful and we can avoid this in the future, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I have a question. Do we have signs in our park that say what is and isn't prohibited?
No, it might be a good idea. I put up a handmade one on the gazebo inside just saying no smoking and stuff, but that was just one that I'd put up. I'm no longer, I want to commend Verla and her group. They're doing a beautiful job. And I stayed with her to help her just with the gazebo. I really am going to get done, but the guys are coming from the Rumble Mill, and I'm doing a program on the 25th anniversary of the burning. So I wanted the 2 particular parks that I'd been taking care of, which is the big wheels and the gazebo. I told her I'd continue to do that, but she's got it pretty much under control with her group. She's got a lot of new, younger people, I think, interested, and I think they look great. So I'm happy with that, but I just... You know, no, we don't. We have park hours, I think, listed on all of them. And Steve,
Something we should think about. You know, those hard, maybe not a metal sign, but hard plastic sign I don't know how cheaply they can be made, but.
Well, I think, not big ones, not a
No,
sign. I mean,
No, I know.
Sign
we're
to
trying
say no
get away-
signs.
Right. Signs that say no signs.
Well, I think
but
if you just
something
read
that's
it
really
early-
discreet, very discreet and just kind of, sometimes you have to do it for people to get, they're not going to come read the ordinance.
well,
so.
there's really not too much going on that's breaking any rules. It's just that it was set a bad precedence to start putting these, especially these plastic signs and stuff.
Right. Well, I'm thinking like inside the gazebo, it's kind of a discreet area.
Well, I've just got a little tiny thing that says no
Right.
smoking, littering and stuff.
Right.
But that
It's just a thought.
doesn't work. So,
Well,
so that's it. Thank you. And I didn't have enough. I forgot how many council members there were, so I'm sorry the two of you didn't get that, but I think you know what's on it anyway, so thank you.
Don't organizations have to go to somebody to get permission to put up a sign?
I think so.
Anybody?
I think so.
Especially a sign like that.
Correct, but I think they went to the town manager and he okayed it in this case.
That is correct.
But I don't know if you realize that they have been putting them on the right-hand side. Other signs, when we had the fun day and stuff, that's where they had moved them to, so. And I did say that to the lady. I said, next time, if you just put it over there, and then we don't have any problem with anybody else wanting to put signs. Because if you're gonna do it for any event, then there's plenty of events going on, whether they're profit or non-profit or whatever, there's all kinds of events, so it really takes away from the looks of what the people are doing, and it's a lot of work keeping these gardens looking good, so. So, that's, I don't know, I guess, has anybody got any other questions? I think it's pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Thank you. Larry Fillmore from Lisbon. In an emergency, every second counts in determining life or death. The country has instituted a program called 911 in order to expedite the process in the hopes of saving lives. Our county commissioners are trying to do the same by consolidating all the communication centers and eliminating redundancy within the process. A 911 emergency phone call goes to either Lewis and Auburn 911 if received by a landline, or to the Maine State Police Barracks in Gray if received by cell phone. These calls are then relayed to the Lisbon Communication Center to dispatch police, fire, and emergency medical services. No 911 call comes directly to the Lisbon Communication Center. Let me repeat that. No 911 calls come directly to the Lisbon Communication Center. The county commissioners are trying to improve this process by eliminating the middle step. By dispatching police, fire, and EMS from the point the call is received, will eliminate having to call the Lisbon Communications Center and speed up the response time. In an emergency, time is critical, and every minute, second can make the difference between life or death. Streamlining the process in lives should be the #1 priority of. It would appear by your vote on May 1st, loyalty and logistics comes before saving the lives of our citizens. Why would you not want to speed up the process and attempt to save as many lives as possible? What is the price you put on a life? When the town council decided to change the council working rules by moving audience participation to the beginning of the meeting to eliminate the people from speaking on voting issues during the discussion phase of the process, it was with the understanding the council would publish under agenda documentation all items being discussed and voted on during the meeting. This enabled the public to know and understand what was being voted on and could provide input during audience participation. At the last town council meeting, this was not the case. There was no agenda documents pertaining to either Chief Brooks's presentation nor the two issues Chief Brooks asked the council to vote on. These issues were to support the Lisbon Consolidation Plan consuming the county dispatch, and that if the county proposal failed, that Lisbon will keep Lisbon's dispatch and not go with the 911 plan. Both orders passed. Both of these items are critical to the citizens of Lisbon, and the public should have been given an opportunity to provide input prior to a vote. This Lisbon Communication Center issue involves the lives of everyone living in Lisbon. The council should always allow the citizens of Lisbon the opportunity to speak on all issues prior to voting on them. If, as in this case, the public had no prior notification of what was being considered, the vote should have been tabled until the people had an opportunity to provide input to the council before they voted on the issue. Apparently, the town council did not want the public to know what was going on because there was no videotape due to technical difficulties while the cameras were being operated by an experienced operator. Thank you.
If you want, I would like to respond, so if you want to respond first, that's fine.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
would like to clear up one inaccuracy, just one of them anyway. There currently is 2 PSAPs in the county, one by the County Sheriff's Department, one by LA 911. Lisbon's PSAP calls come in from the county, not from LA 911 now. And this is a county commissioner's decision as to how they want to handle their consolidation of their dispatch. We simply voted to say where we felt the best interests of Lisbon were in.
Just to respond, there was a meeting last night of the people that were, the people of the county that would be influenced or affected by this decision. I just want to assure people there is no basis for any facts, and it was discussed at length last night about any length of time for a PSAP for 911. Lisbon has, for the last 6 years, been recording the idea of doing the relay process we're doing, and there's been no lapse at all in that period of time. There's other communities that actually just they get their PSAP from out of the county. What was talked about last night, it's very possible within a year or so, LA 911 won't even have a PSAP. The state's trying to condense it down to possibly a handful, maybe possibly down to 2, which actually may not even allow them. They may even have to go outside to relay for their PSAP. So again, the idea of the council being, I guess, accused or presented the idea that we don't take our best interests as citizens in best interests of safety is non-factual. I mean, we actually look at the concerns. We do. That budget, the budget that's put forward from the county commissioners is something the county commissioners, Mike is right, that's something they're working on. Every community's been actually asked to put input on it. I think what we did, and it was listed on the agenda that there was going to be a discussion about it. We were asked to refer, we have already taken a straw poll multiple times to actually go over the same item in other workshops. So I don't think that we're, how would I say it, misleading anybody. I don't think we're actually taking the safety away from Lisbon. If anything, I think we're actually adding and preserving some safety that could be affected. To assume or to, I guess that'd be the best way of putting it, that we somehow magically made the camera system not work so it would actually benefit us, I think is pretty far-fetched.
Okay?
I
First
agree.
of-
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that.
Okay. As far as 911 calls, my facts are correct. Emergency calls on landlines do not go to the county ASO. They go directly to 911 because I got that information directly from the county commissioners and the PUC.
Nope, you're 100%
Okay.
wrong, sir, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. I called them and asked them before I made that statement.
Call sheriff discharge.
okay? But they relay it on to ASO, just like they do to us, okay? Is the way it was explained to me. Now, the camera, I don't know. But anybody who doesn't believe that cutting the response time down or eliminating a middle process, right? You can't argue with the facts. If it has to be relayed, it takes time, whether it's 1 second, 1 minute, or 10 minutes. There is a time delay. If we worked out a process where the calls came into Lisbon Communication Center directly, then I don't have an issue with this. But when we have to relay, that's time, and that's people's lives.
Yes, sir.
Based on your current statement you just made, Mr. Fillmore, our calls already are relayed, even if your information is correct. Because they go, if they're by your call, they go to LA 911, and then they come to us.
That's correct.
They don't go to LA 911, they go to the county, and they still come to us. So there's still a relay today to Lisbon. Our vote last week was not to change that relay, was not to change any of the safety for this community.
I understand that, and that's my point.
Well,
If we eliminated it,
your point, then why are
that
you
would
arguing?
increase the response time. That's the whole issue I'm bringing out.
No change in response time, either way you do it.
Yeah, the discussion last night at the meeting was, people were trying to put hard facts beside you to go along with the history. And Lisbon actually has a pretty good foundation for that, because we were a PSAP for a number of years. Then 6 years ago, we lost that PSAP. And there was really no measurable time difference in our response for emergency call. So, I mean, it's something that we can base our history on and actually have proven facts that it really doesn't affect the safety of Lisbon. I mean, on paper, I see what you're talking about, when you have multiple hands in the case, but I think that's, the facts probably just don't actually add up to the concern.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
Yes.
When we voted last week, we took 2 votes regarding this, and I'm just looking through my council meeting minutes to see if I can find the wording. But just for clarification, it was my understanding that we were voting to support it, not that we were voting to do something to harm the town of Lisbon. And it wasn't a vote to accept or decline anything. It was simply to support what we see to be a better option at this point in time. Doesn't mean it won't change if, for some reason, something better comes along, but nothing has. And the town of Lisbon has worked for a long time on this, so I think we didn't vote without regard to our citizens. We voted to support something that that's important to all of us as citizens, and including the other citizens in Lisbon. So I just wanted to clarify that. I felt like it.
The vote wasn't to change anything in a sense.
That's right.
Steve?
Steve Warren from Lisbon Falls. I just wanted to address the current vacancy on the Trail Commission. We've had a vacancy there, and the Trail Commission, I think, can be a tremendous asset to the town in terms of planning and working on public access issues. And Richard Nadeau has come to the meeting last month and contributed very substantially, and I think would be a great asset to the Trail Commission and to the town. So I would recommend that you move on that appointment and fill that vacancy. And also want to comment that the Trail Commission, as well as I'm on the Planning Board, and in both cases we're trying to move things ahead and be more proactive, more forward-thinking, and I think that the boards and commissions in town can offer a lot to the town by doing that. It sometimes is uncomfortable for some people to maybe step out of a traditional role for these types of commissions or boards, which in many cases just function as a rubber stamp for an administrative decision, and to have people who are actually expressing their own ideas, coming forward with ideas, can be a little bit difficult for some other people. So it can be challenging, but there's a real benefit to that, to having an engaged membership to these types of boards. So I think Richard would be an asset. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And just to touch on what Steve's mentioning, one of the things that we've actually been doing as council, and we've actually kind of gave Steve the go-ahead to try to do, is actually pull together our committees and overlook and look at the guidelines of how they actually work and what the requirements are for people to actually serve on them. And once they do get voted in on what their roles are, so when people do volunteer their time, they're actually feeling that they're getting the most out of it and being productive. We've been working in almost in the conclusion of the rec committee. This particular committee, the Trails Committee, has actually had some changing of the guard. And the chairperson actually just stepped down recently, so it's definitely, we're in the process of actually working to try to make that committee as what it should be, because it is a very important part of our town. So thank you, Steve. I do appreciate your input. Any other takers for audience participation? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Next item is audience participation response.
This part of the meeting is where we try to respond back to questions last time. Mr. Fillmore had actually asked us a question about budget-related items, about the idea of looking at the budget and not understanding or not feeling that the information was adding up. And I can't respond back to that because the budget is a very complex item, but we do have a person on staff that's very good at answering those questions. So I'm going to ask Jessica to actually come up and respond to your question and answer those, okay? But it's something that I would not have been able to do without her help, so here she is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On May 1st, 2012, Mr. Fillmore called me, the town finance director, and requested the current year budget for both the town and school departments. At that time, I proceeded to tell him I could provide him with that information by email and would do so. Mr. Fillmore thanked me and we hung up. Later that day, I responded to Mr. Fillmore that the following figures were the budget dollars for 2012. The school department at $13,758,066, made up 67%, and the town at $6,934,020, made up 33%. These are the budgeted amounts that Council approved on June 21st, 2011 for the town, and May 17th, 2011 under Articles 14 and 16 for the school. Within a half an hour, he responded back with the only comment, "Thanks, Jessica." At no time did Mr. Fillmore imply that the numbers he was provided not match something he was trying to tie back to. At no time did Mr. Fillmore inquire to me as to why these numbers did not tie out. And at no time did Mr. Fillmore indicate his intention for requesting these dollars. The only statement made by Mr. Fillmore was a request for the 2012 budgets for the town and school, followed by a "Thanks, Jessica." Had Mr. Fillmore inquired of me, rather than to simply say "Thanks, Jessica," as to the discrepancy of the numbers he obtained from the town website to the ones I provided, here is what I could have supplied him. The budget I provided Mr. Fillmore was $6,934,020 for the town. To that, you need to add $776,370 in carry-forwards from 2011. Another $84,424 in overlay, and $284,809 in TIF payments, for a total of $8,079,623. The report that Mr. Fillmore pulled from the website excluded accounts that will no longer be pertinent for fiscal year 2013. For example, any expired grants. Again, keep in mind that the report on the website was built for the 2013 budget, not 2012 as he requested from me. This total, the accounts that are no longer pertinent for 2013, was $45,984, matching the $8,033,639 that Mr. Fillmore publicly referenced. Moving on to the school department, Mr. Fillmore publicly stated to you at the last council meeting that from the school fact sheet, he obtained last year's budget number of $5,177,171. This number is the portion that relates to the school's request for local funding. To this, you need to add $98,610 for the adult education portion of local funding. Also, you need to add $8,482,285 in subsidy and anticipated revenues to come to the total school approved budget of $13,758,066, which is what I supplied to Mr. Fillmore on May 1st as the budget for the school department for 2012. The comment that it is totally impossible for Mr. Fillmore to verify until he gets two numbers that match is out of line for the manner in which he handled this situation. It is his lack of understanding of the information he requests and unwillingness to accept and learn from the professionals that do that make his task impossible. Again, I point out that at no point did Mr. Fillmore inquire of me as to the reasoning for the difference in the numbers. More importantly, at no point did Mr. Fillmore state to me what he so freely ranted in a public forum to council at the last meeting. In regards to Mr. Fillmore's request for the general fund balance to, and I quote, determine if the town has the correct amount in the undesignated fund, which is mandated by our charter. Mr. Fillmore cites that the town is required to maintain 12.5% of the total municipal and school general fund, when in actuality, the town ordinance, section 86-1B, states the following: the level of fund balance that the town strives to maintain as undesignated is an amount equal to 12.5% of the town's general fund budget, town and school, i.e., an amount equal to 6 weeks' operating expenses from the then current operating budget. It goes on further to state in section 86-1D, this policy has been adopted by the town to recognize the financial importance of a stable and sufficient level of the undesignated fund balance. However, the town reserves the right to appropriate funds from the undesignated fund balance for emergencies and other requirements the town believes to be in the best interest of the town. Mr. Fillmore claims he continues to receive different numbers every time he asks. However, the undesignated fund balance is calculated once a year during our annual audit in conjunction with our external auditors and can be found at any time in the financial statements that can both be requested at the town office or found online at the Town of Lisbon website. Mr. Fillmore claims he called the State of Maine Tax Division for the correct number, claiming the town is short approximately $7,271.50. I have not been notified by Mr. Fillmore what number he obtained from the state or how he verified that it was correct, since, as he previously stated, it is totally possible for him to verify this information until he gets two numbers that match. Given Mr. Fillmore's performance at the last council meeting on May 1st, 2012, one can only assume he was once again looking to entrap a town employee, in this case myself, by not inquiring of me as to the discrepancy between his numbers and those that I provided. Rather, he chose to publicly grandstand and belittle yet another citizen and taxpayer of this community. Mr. Fillmore has brought up the issue of public perception and how what is produced is available for all the public to consume. I would like to remind him of this as he continually stands before you, berating my fellow colleagues, citizens, and professionals, as well as his elected officials that make up the employment here at the Town of Lisbon. Thank you.
The other question that was asked was about, Richard Nader, about the street sweeping. It's been going on quite some time. Unfortunately, some of the roads in different areas have been done. It is ongoing, and I don't know when the final time of conclusion would be, but I know with the weather, the way it has, they've been out there in the rain still sweeping, so hopefully they are doing their job, and it appears to be, and soon this roads will be free of dirt and safe for all.
It takes time. We only have one sweeper, and there's a lot of miles to cover, and they're getting to it as fast as they can.
All right, next item, Twyla.
Is under the consent agenda. Any counselor wishing to have any item removed may do so now. Items removed from the consent agenda will be considered next. Seeing none, Order 2012-53 to approve the minutes of May 1, 2012, renewal victualler licenses for Bootleggers, Coombs Mountford Post 158, Dairy Maid, Good Time Lanes, Kennebec Fruit Company, Left Hand Club, Polly's Dogs, Railroad Restaurant and Pub, Raymond J. Levine, VFW Post 9459, Riverside Dairy Bar, Something Fishy, and the United Methodist Church, plus a renewal mass gathering permit for the Riverside Flea Market.
So moved.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
I think we'll repeat that again. Good Twyla.
You're all welcome.
Next item.
Under Council Orders, Resolutions, and Ordinances, Order 2012-54, the Legislative Policy Committee nominations.
This is for the MMA Legislative Policy Committee. There's approximately 70-plus people who serve that each year. They request nominations from each community to appoint someone to that committee so we can bring back information that is provided to us by the lobbyists that work for MMA and give us the best information we can and support bills that are good for municipalities and bills that aren't so good, so we can vote against them. I have served on that committee for the last 2 years, and I would request that you nominate me again. It's a good position to be and keeps us well informed for the benefit of Lisbon.
Any discussion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Steve.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Order passed 7-0.
One more thing to do again.
Yeah, there we go.
Next item, Twyla.
Order 2012-55, Campus Commons Meeting Room naming.
You should have received a handout from Scott Benson, the Brunswick Housing Authority Director. Mr. Hodgkins is requesting if we would like to partake in naming the meeting rooms in the Campus Commons building. They are hopefully going to be finished by July, and we had already done a survey and request for names. You voted for the name of the building to be Campus Commons, and he would like to know if you'd like to either go back out and do that again to name the 2 meeting rooms or just use our original list. Scott's recommendation was to stay with, we had quite a turnout of people requesting, but that's 2 different names.
Would it, I guess, entertain any,
I was part of that process, and I think as several of us were, and I think that it was very evident that there was a lot of support from both Mr. Ladner and Mr. Kazanik. His family felt quite adamant that he should be honored, and I feel that we should just go with those 2. Most of us went to school here in town, and we know that those gentlemen played a large part in the public school system here. I think even one group had a petition. There were several people that suggested these names. It wasn't just one name. So my suggestion is we go with those 2. I've spoken to family members, as you have, I think, and Scott has. And I just feel it would be honoring unto these men. So that's my opinion.
any other recommendations from council?
Not really a recommendation, just wondering, I mean, they kind of want a name, right, for this. So do we have to come up with something that goes along with that? Like, would it be, Ladner's Community Room, or would it be, Kasonic's Library, or something like that? Or, I mean, do you just name it Ladner and Kasonic? I mean, it seems like it needs something more than just their name, right? One's kind of like a community room, right, on the lower level, and one's kind of a reading and library area at the top. So I just think we should probably put something along with their name to make it a, you know,
Could we, Could we-
something that would be reasonable for a name, rather
yeah,
than saying, oh, I'm
I
going to.
totally agree.
Community room, library.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, it could be
Yeah.
the Casonic's library room or whatever. and
Meeting
Yeah.
room
Ladner's, community room or something like that, or whatever.
Could we, do we need, is that something we need to vote on this evening, or,
You can,
yep? I mean,
we have a meeting
I mean,
next
I'm
week.
okay with going with it, I just.
Yep. No, I
want
agree.
to make sure it has something to it, so that,
Is there any other recommendations beside that before we talk about that one some more? I would think that if we could actually, with that theme in mind, actually have Scott maybe work to see if the more official understanding, or and maybe bring it back for a vote, or do you want to just vote on the idea of using those two names and however it actually
I'm okay
works?
either way.
I agree.
I think they'd feel really good if their name was just on a plaque on the door or above the door, or however you do it. I don't know. Maybe we can
Well, I
ask the family or,
I would entertain a motion to use those two names, and then actually Scott could actually make it work as fit. but
right.
I'll make a motion to use those.
And I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you.
Next item, Twyla?
Is under other business, the finance director's report.
Okay. So before you should have my finance report for the month of April. Looking at revenues, April brought in just over $150,000. This is primarily due to the excise tax collection at $120,000, recycling revenue at $8,000, and recreation revenue at $7,000. State revenue sharing is 80% collected, with another $61,000 that came in during April. That is actually reflected in your year-to-date column of the report. Last year at this time, we were also 80% collected on a budget of $750,000. To achieve our current budget of $830,000, we would need to average $82,000 for each remaining month. Historically, despite increased levels as summer approaches, we have not seen revenue sharing at these levels. We will continue to monitor this account through the remainder of the year, though I project we will probably be between $80,000 to $100,000 under budget. Excise tax is just over 81% for the month. Last April, year-to-date collection was at 76%. In order to meet our current budget, we would have to bring in $110,000 per remaining month, and that is well within our average for each of the said months left. And that's really all I have for revenues, unless you have questions for me.
Good question.
Yes.
On the state revenue sharing, wasn't that a fixed number from the state?
Well, they give you projections, what they think that they do based on averages, and it's never a number that they stick by, it's concrete. Sometimes we exceed it, and sometimes
Right.
we used to always exceed it, but now it's a shot.
Right, we usually always,
Somewhat close,
A
yeah.
lot closer than 165,000.
Yeah.
I mean, the next 2 months could, we could have a boom, but I would rather err on the side of being conservative and be able to come back and tell you, woo-hoo, we did great. But based on what we have been seeing come in, if it stays at that level, we could be short. So, just wanted to point that out.
Any other questions on revenue?
I actually have two in regards to the veterans reimbursement and the tree growth. Is this number representing money that we didn't expect to get? Because it looks like it's higher already what we've received compared to what our budget amount was.
Yeah, part of that is due to timing between the 2010-11 and the 2011-12 fiscal years. We had some delays in receipt of the funding last year, so last year you would have seen the shortfall, and it's in this year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on revenue? Seeing none?
Okay, moving on to expenses. The total expenditures for the month of April were $647,435. Of this, 51%, or $328,000, was related to personnel services, including wages and benefits. Contractual services made up approximately 38% at $249,000. This is primarily due to the second half of the TIF payments at $89,000, hydrant rental fees of $73,000, winter public works sand and salt purchase of $22,000, waste disposal fees of $21,000, and town building expenses of $11,000, which again is where we pay for our heating oil, electricity, and telephone charges. Lease purchases made up 6% at $43,000. We made our final interest payments for this fiscal year. And repair and maintenance and supplies made up 4% at $28,000, again primarily due to gas and fuel purchases. I still have no real big areas of concern. We are overexpended on legal charges. However, historically, we always overexpend that category. We will be further, I mentioned this last month as well, we will be further overexpended in the abatement account before the end of the year. We'll be doing a journal entry to reflect the write-offs that occurred this year. And winter public works is overexpended by $14,000 relating to the winter sand and salt purchases. Other than that, everything else looks to be pretty well within reason. And that's what I have for expenses.
Any other questions? Mike?
I know you've probably told me this before, but the overrun in contingency, was that a coding, or was that something we had to move around, or?
Yes. Yeah, there was $8,000 that was designated out of surplus.
Yes, that's for the building we tore down.
Yeah.
Okay. And you think we'll come in overall okay?
It'll be close. I'll hopefully have a better projection for you next month, being May, but we're pretty well on track. There's a few overages, but nothing.
Can next month we kind of have a plan of, if we're not on track, how we're going to manage this? Right,
I can try to
where we're
simulate.
gonna be. I mean, I know we're over in some and under in others, so just want to make sure we got a plan that's going to cover us at the end of the day.
I can try to simulate what I normally provide at year end for the carry forwards and transfers and just show you
Yeah.
what we'd be looking at.
That would be good.
Yep.
Any other questions for council? Seeing none.
And just as a side note, as I always do, as of April 30th, we have collected 96% or $9.1 million of the total tax commitment. This is slightly above last year where we were 94% collected. Even giving this, the deputy tax collector has mailed out over 460 courtesy letters in April versus only 272 that were sent out last year. So just wanted to let you know,
It's good to know.
right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, Twyla?
Is the town manager's report?
Fern covered the dispatch. Public Works, we also discussed, besides doing the sweeping and trying to stay ahead of that, they are doing some ditching, trying to get some cleanup of that and getting ready for the paving on Fisher Road and Fisher Bridge Road. They are also doing a lot of tree cutting, so just so some people know, we do outsource our larger trees. Malloy right now has been doing that for us, and we do as many as size trees as we can. We're trying to cut back trees as much as we can, so there's more sunlight, and ditching is a little bit better. So, Recreation Committee, we've been, as Fern had said, working on that ordinance along with meeting rules. Those have been really good meetings, and a lot of input from all the people there, and that's gone on to final draft, and legal will look at that and see how it compares to what changes we made from what we had. Also, I'd like to point out the police department recently completed their short-term detention facility inspection along by the Department of Corrections. This is something that, a good standard. The two areas that were rated was detention and correctional standards in juvenile justice and delinquency prevention. And both of those areas we scored 100%. which is a real pat on the back for the kind of qualities, police department and how we do our job. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Next item, Twyla?
Is under appointments. Order 2012-56, the 2012-13 AvCog General Assembly Representatives.
Each year, they request appointments from the council for members to the General Assembly and to the Executive Committee. I have served as the Executive Committee member, and which is, they have meetings usually during the day, once a month. And then they like to have a public official, somebody that sits on the council, to represent us in the General Assembly as well. And last year it was Mark. So
We need to vote on it.
you need to vote on that so I can send those in.
Sure. And I guess, Mark, you actually participated last
I
year?
did, yes.
Yep. And does anybody else have any interests, or are you willing, Mark?
Willing to if no one else wants to do it.
Okay.
If you want to draft me.
So moved.
Voluntold, yeah. I would, if that's, are you willing to?
Yes, I'm
Is
willing
that
to,
something you have
yes.
interest in? I would not want you
Second
not to.
that motion.
Okay, all those in favor of Mark and Steve?
Order passed, 7-0.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Next item?
Order 2012-57, appointment forfeiture on the Recreation Committee.
Should have in your packets a letter from Mark and the committee that there's a gentleman who's been serving there that has not been able to fulfill the time frame, the times. He's got other commitments, and he said he's needs to step away, so.
Any questions from council on this item?
So basically, we're taking this position away, and we'll have to reappoint it.
Yeah, somebody else. That's the next two items.
And we have all the records and everything
Yes.
representing,
Yep, we do.
okay. Make a motion to accept.
A second.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Next item?
Order 2012-58, Recreation Committee, one regular member, term expiring 6/30/2013.
And these two positions, you have two different people. One of them is here this evening, or was here. Oh, there he is, in the audience. He's been quite active in all the youth programs, and the committee would like to recommend that we appoint him along with Stephanie Dowdy, who everybody, I'm sure, knows who that is, and she's always been quite active in the committee, and they're also recommending her.
If I may add to that also, one of the things that's helping with the revamping of the committee is to make sure the committee represents what the rec committee itself actually fulfills, and these applicants actually help fulfill that part of not just being members of people that do youth sports, but also the activities that happen within the MTM building and the senior program. So as a program evolves and actually kind of fulfills that need for the committee, because the committee does play a very important role to help guide our rec program, which is striving and growing. So I think it's a committee that needs a lot of support. And both these members have fulfilled some of the new requirements, meaning going to a meeting and then actually getting a recommendation from the group that they would actually they know what's going on and that they will be happy to participate in moving it forward. So there's been a lot of thought in these new applications, and hopefully we can support them and give Mark the guidance and help he needs, because definitely it's a growing program and never-ending growing, I think. So.
Never ending, for sure.
I would make a motion to accept Dan Lehman and Stephanie Dowdy, pulling them both into one.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Order passed.
Thank you very much.
7-0.
Yep. Next item?
Move right on to Councilor Communications.
I have a quick one.
Sure.
I wanted to take the time to thank the participants that showed up last week at the public hearing and spoke out about the budget. Also, I've received a number of emails and phone calls and been stopped in the grocery store from folks who have things that they want to say about it. So that's important to us as we're continuing to work through all of this. So many thanks to to folks who have spoke out on that. And I also want to point out that I think the school department has done a really nice job in looking at ways that they could present a really decent budget, looking at consolidating, thinking outside the box, using the resources that they have available while maintaining and/or improving the quality of education for students in Lisbon. So I think they did a nice job. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other takers on communication? Roger.
Yeah, I want to say something about the sweeping. The town did a little different this year. They used to do a week in Lisbon, Falls. They did Lisbon completely this time, and then they moved down to Lisbon Falls. That's why there was a little bit of delay. They may rotate next year, do Lisbon Falls first, then Lisbon. It's just something they're trying. Shortage of manpower, stuff like that. So maybe that'll help with the concerns. That's all I got.
Thank you, Roger. Any other takers?
I do. I attended the rec committee meeting, and I have to say that I just really feel like the members of the committee are really committed to improving their efficacy, and I think a lot of people have felt like they aren't making a difference, and I feel like the committee, the people that I see at that meeting each month are more and more dedicated, and they really are concerned with making sure that they do things the right way and that they are keeping everybody in mind. It just seems like such a great effort to me, and it's really a privilege to be able to sit in on those meetings and get this insight. So I just think they're doing a great job, and I just see it getting better as time goes on, and quickly, which is really good.
They got a great program to work from. I mean,
Yep.
it really is. And that's it. I just want to add a couple of things. Again, I want to go back and thank everybody for attending the public hearing on the budget. There was a lot of people in attendance. I got to say there was a lot of town people there, and there was quite a few citizens, and it, to me, actually is a great opportunity for us to actually go over the budget and get some input. A couple concerns that came up at the public hearing was the idea that potentially the meeting was an illegal meeting because we didn't properly publicize it. Just want to assure everybody that the meeting was done right by the books. It's the way it's always been done before I was there and along. I think that hopefully that some of the response I got is that people do trust the council to try to do things the best they can. There's not one member of this council or management team that would actually benefit by misleading the people. And we're not there to do that. We're here to spend our time to help move Lisbon forward, and I can't imagine anybody thinking that we'd do anything but. So just rest assured that that meeting was official, was correct, and unfortunately sometimes it's just miscommunication and not a proper understanding that leads to a lot of confusion. But we are not here to mislead anybody. We're here to actually serve the people. Just to give a little bit more description on the communication discussion. This discussion's been going on for years. It was going on years before I started listening to it, and within the first month of me being on the council 5 years ago, we actually listened to many different meetings. Was able to sit in a room last night and hear firsthand what our management team and staff has been telling us for quite some time. There are a lot of communities around us that actually are very supportive and glad that Lisbon's actually reached out to help them maybe come to a conclusion, or not a conclusion, but help them with their problem with dispatching. Thursday night there will be another commissioners meeting where they'll be discussing this and potentially a vote. From the room that we had last night and prior to coming to this meeting, I was watching the Lawson Town Council, and there is not just 2 or 3, but we're talking 8 or 9 communities that surround us that have a very big concern about what we're doing, and the votes that we actually made that last meeting go along with the concerns of the other communities around us. And I'm not saying there's any perfect solution, because if it was, it would have been done a long time ago. But the council is working and supporting our staff to try to make the best decisions we can to financially and safely take care of our community, and hopefully you respect that. As I said at the beginning, we have no reason not to. I mean, we live here. It's our safety too, so we're trying to do the best we can. Next item?
There is no executive session. It's to adjourn to a workshop.
So moved?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
We will be doing a budget workshop. Everybody's invited to stay and listen to the discussions. We're going to take a 5-minute break to just regroup and move to the table. That's yours.
Thank you, sir.
Do you even know, did somebody admit to putting it there?
Part 2.
Jessica, take a deep breath.
Silly.
Looked in my cup, I got a paper clip in there.
Sometimes it has to be personal.
I know.
Does Tyler tape this part?
She had to make that
You know,
personal.
Is Tyler, is he
get
going to
pretty
tape
good
this part?
every time.
Or because it's a workshop, he doesn't?
I don't agree with you.
Or Steve,
Today you was up there.
DJ isn't taping this
Put off
part,
the
right?
car, I was pulling
Okay,
him over.
so we're not taping this part. So you can do whatever you do to close it down.
I like listening, I
thank
like
you very much.
stories. We need to tell stories. I like to listen to stories.